I turned this burner off a while ago, but I still want to check if it's hot, and the best way to do this is to simply put your hand on it. Oh yeah! Oh man, yes indeed, that is still hot. I got a new thermal camera that I'm testing out, and from this thermal camera we do see that that element is indeed hot. I suppose I could have checked it before I put my hand on it, but now my hand absorbed some of that heat. Hey guys, Jay here with Word of Advice TV. In this video I'll be checking out the new Topdon thermal camera, the TS001. I have 3 things on the to-do list for this video, and number 1 is to see how well this camera picks up animals, rodents, and birds at night. Number 2 is to check my window air conditioners and my portable air conditioner to see how poorly sealed they are and what are the areas where I can seal them up better. And number 3 is to check some of my power outlets because I remembered something very important that I had forgotten. But besides those 3 things, I'm probably going to be checking and testing a bunch of other stuff, so whatever I find interesting, I'm going to go ahead and include that as well. So let's begin and see what the world looks like on the other side. To begin with, I tested this camera during the day to see if it'll pick out the birds in the grass, and as you can see, they stand out very nicely. Here, I'm filming a group of small birds behind a screen door. It's kind of fun to watch them all scatter on the thermal camera as I open the door. I also tried using different color palettes with the birds, but I think the default orange and purple is the best. What do you think? Now that I know that it can pick out birds, I waited until nighttime and went out to look for birds in the trees and bushes. The birds are actually much harder to find at night, but I did manage to find a few. The main reason it's hard is because there seems to be a glare from the sky when you point the thermal camera upward, which makes it hard to scan the trees. But these orange dots in the trees are definitely birds. I double checked by throwing a rock at one of them, and you can see the bird flying away. I also heard my neighbor's rooster cackling, and I was able to locate him in the tree. I filmed that night for a couple of days, so I found him again in another tree the next day. As you can see, the orange dot is quite a bit bigger for a rooster than a bird. And unlike the birds, it was super easy to find field mice in the grass. If there's a mouse within 50 feet of you, you will be able to see it clearly with a thermal camera. I was able to find a bunch of them roaming around in the grass. This last one is pretty cool because you can see the mouse walk up to a wild pig and then turn around and run away. I have a problem in my backyard with these wild black pigs. They come and dig up patches of grass at night. When I walk out with a flashlight, they book it into the tall grass and it's really hard to see them in there. But with a thermal camera, even if they're behind grass, they're very easy to spot. Here's an example of one digging something up under a bush. It's behind a bunch of grass, but you could still see it. This one is about 50 feet away, but I was able to easily spot them around 300 feet away too, since they're rather large animals. One night, I actually caught a pig strolling into my neighbor's yard like it owns the place. And in a little while after it was done doing its business, I saw it casually walking back out. I'm guessing it was busy wrecking his grass too. I also looked at my pet chameleon and was surprised to find him glowing orange. Since it's cold-blooded, I thought it would barely show up. During this week, we also went camping and there were a lot of stray cats around, so I filmed a few of them too. Here's one running away with the ocean waves in the background. I thought that looked pretty cool. And here's one that is super far. This cat was probably more than 500 feet away. Next up, we have my air conditioners. My window AC in my living room that has a plexiglass over it went as expected. By the way, if you want to see how I installed this thing, I have a separate video where I show you how I did that there. Since I only use Scotch tape to hold the plexiglass in place, you can see that the edges are hotter because they're leaking warm air in. I bet some foam weather stripping would do a much better job. Perhaps someday I'll get to it. By the way, I filmed this during the day, so the window is extra bright. But notice how the unit itself does not have any hot spots, only cold spots. That's because the hot side of the air conditioner is outside. This is why window air conditioners are more efficient than portable air conditioners. Just take a look at my portable AC. There's a massive hot spot which is inside the house. Plus, the vent hose gets hot too. The dual hose units are definitely better than the single hose units though, and with a thermal camera, you can clearly see where the intake and the exhaust sides of the hose are. I talk in more detail about the dual hose concept in my other video where I installed this unit, so if you're interested, check that video out. And if we look at the outside portion of this portable AC, with this one, we can clearly see that I did not seal it up good enough. And here's the window AC in our bedroom. Nothing too interesting to report here, but I do find it impressive that the power cord gets so hot. It's literally glowing on the thermal camera. But if I look at it outside, there is something interesting here. This AC is designed to sling water on the coil outside, but some of that water gets splattered on the wall of the house. If I just look at it, I can't see the wet spots, but with a thermal camera, they really stand out. I do wonder if these spots will become stains in the future. While I was filming this part, I also took a look at the walls and ceilings in the house to see if I can use this thermal camera as a stud finder, and as you can see, yes, you can. The studs and trusses are plainly visible, so you can definitely use this to also find hot or cold spots in your walls and ceilings. Okay, let's move on. We know that power cords get hotter when they are in use, but while I was doing all this, I remembered about phantom power, which basically means that appliances still use power even if they're off. The Department of Energy estimates that 5 to 8% of a home's total electricity usage is from powered off appliances, chargers, and other electronics. This is equivalent to a whole month's energy bill. That's crazy. Out of curiosity, I went around the house and checked some of the outlets that had something plugged into them, and sure enough, the plugs, blocks, and adapters were all showing up on the thermal camera. Even a pencil sharpener plug showed up. So for me, this was a great reminder to unplug devices that are not in use because they are still consuming energy even when they're off. One more thing that I wanted to mention is that mechanics probably have the most practical use cases for a thermal camera. I've read many reviews by mechanics that say thermal cameras are great for all kinds of things, like finding exhaust restrictions, parasitic draws, failed bearings, short circuits, and a bunch of other stuff. One review I particularly found interesting is where a guy used a thermal camera to see if his wheels are aligned properly. If they are not, one side of the wheel would be hotter. I thought that was pretty genius of him. I'm sure we all agree that thermal cameras are pretty cool, but let me share the pros and cons of the camera I used in this video. Overall, I thought this camera was okay. There's two things that I found a bit irritating. One is that it's in a permanent 3x zoom. It's almost like you need to stand 3 feet away from things just to get a good view of it in the camera. The 9mm lens is adjustable, but that's only to adjust the focus, not the distance. So if you're trying to look at things close up, I don't think this would be a good choice for you. The second thing is that the camera occasionally lags. I'm not sure what causes it to glitch like this. Sometimes it glitches every 5 seconds, and sometimes it can go for a full 30 seconds before it does that. I was using a Samsung Galaxy S23, which is a newer phone, so I don't think the phone was the issue. If you're trying to record something that is in motion, this frequent lag can be frustrating. But there is a lot of good about this camera as well. It's loaded with a ton of features. You can select a variety of different color palettes. I show another example of this here with the seat warmer in my car. You can select a specific area where you want the camera to read the temperature by tapping on your phone screen, drawing a box with your finger, or drawing a line, and it measures the temperatures in those areas only. One really cool feature that I liked is that you can turn on your phone camera simultaneously with the thermal camera and adjust the transparency. I think that's a really neat feature. The only downside is that the thermal camera is a lot more zoomed in than the phone camera, so the images aren't exactly the same, but nonetheless, it's still pretty cool. And of course, the biggest benefit of having a thermal camera on your phone is that all the recordings and the pictures are saved to your phone right away, so you can easily access them or share them whenever you need. In summary, it's not a bad camera, but I wouldn't call it amazing. Personally, I would rather go with a handheld device, but if you want one that attaches to your phone, this is a decent choice. But after seeing all the samples in this video, I would be curious to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. I'll see you there. And if you made it all the way to the end, I have a joke for you. Why did it get so hot in the baseball stadium after the game? That's because all the fans left. You know, I try not to tell my dad jokes, but when I do, he thinks they're funny.